Welcome back to the program. Vice President JD Vance delivered this address at the Heritage Foundation for the premiere of Rod Dreher's docuseries Live Not by Lies, produced by Angel Studios. He states that the only way to reclaim Western civilization is by exhibiting the courage to speak the truth.
Part of living not by lies is to continue to maintain the optimism that I think is really at the root of the Judeo-Christian tradition in the United States of America and in the West. It's that the promise, I'm a devout Christian. I know many of you are. The promise of the Christian faith is not that we're always going to win on a short-term horizon, but that ultimately God calls the shots. He is in control. And if we keep on fighting and we keep on working and we keep on having faith and we keep on pursuing the values that we know are right, I really do believe that we are going to see great things happen.
Wow. That's our vice president there. White House correspondent for the Daily Signal, Elizabeth Troutman Mitchell, shares more on this along with her latest visit to the White House. Elizabeth, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
All right, so first off, you've been there. I know you've been there because I've seen you, especially when you're wearing bright colors. I caught you there in pink one day. I was like, oh, good, it's easy to spot Elizabeth. I see her there. You were called on for a question. You had a great question and answer with Caroline Levitt. First, before we get into Vice President Vance, give us an update on what it's like to be there in that space. It's so crowded in there. What's it really like?
It's been great in there lately. Everyone wants to be in the briefing room. There's just been so much news from tariffs to all of these speeches. Of course, so much going on in this country, and everyone wants to be in the briefing room, but it's been a really exciting place to be for sure.
I also noticed, Elizabeth, that for those who like to come in with the repetitive questions, who kind of want to bully Caroline Levitt a little bit, that she does not allow that. She hits them back immediately. And for those who don't give good questions, she'll tell them they don't get a follow on. I was watching one of the CNN correspondents who's often, kind of adversarial. She asked a question that had already been answered, and Caroline refused to give her a follow on, which I thought was totally appropriate. But we haven't seen that from previous White House press secretaries.
I totally agree. In one of the recent press conferences, almost every single person wanted to know if Mike Waltz was getting fired. And Caroline really made a clear point that I answered that the first time. I don't need to hear it four more times. And as someone who had a different question on a different topic prepared, I really appreciate that she's making sure people aren't wasting her time or the American people's time by asking these repetitive questions that a lot of the time are not even the things that the American people are most concerned about.
Yeah, I was watching that exchange, and when you came in with a different question, I thought, so she's actually going to write about something besides should Mike Waltz be fired, because they'd already said he wasn't going to be. Now, I thought there might be some firings, and it not necessarily Mike Waltz, that there might be some changes made, and that's well within reason. It's great to ask once, but that was a tactic used by Jim Acosta against previous White House press secretaries under the first Trump administration. It got him a television show, but it didn't get the American people any more news or information. So I love your point on that. Turning now to Vice President Vance's speech, he was talking to the Heritage Foundation, and it's this docuseries, Live Not by Lies. I've been watching clips of it online. It's kind of amazing the information they've put together for this. Tell us your analysis.
It was really great to see the vice president at the Heritage Foundation on Tuesday night previewing this new docu-series, which is about Christian dissidents in the USSR. And Vance made some really strong points about how to reclaim Western civilization, which is a topic that I really enjoyed hearing his take on. He was talking about how crucial it is to live by courage, live by virtue, and how he believes that President Trump has courage and that he's not going to give way to criticism or to what people think, but is going to do what he believes is best for the American people. And so I think it was an extremely strong speech from Vance. I recommend checking it out for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. It was very strong. Now, the thing that's happening right now is, of course, President Trump is we're not even, a first quarter in, right? We're barely scraping the first quarter here. And a lot of people want to talk about 2028 and, is JD Vance, the vice president, going to be the next nominee? And 4 years of President Trump, 8 years of Vance. I think that's all in fun and it's great to hear. But there is a kind of passing of the baton from a current president who is in their final term to the vice president, if that person has the chops. And I've noticed that Vice President Vance has made careful work out of every opportunity to expound on who he is as a person, his beliefs. He mentioned being a devout Christian there, which is a very strong stance to take in today's cancellation America. What do you make of the kind of it's all this buzz about Vice President Vance and the next steps after President Trump leaves office?
I think that a lot of people on the left have been really up in arms about Trump saying that he would consider a third term. I think this is clearly a way that he's trolling them, getting them talking about something that clearly isn't going to happen. I think it's just kind of a joke that he's pulling, in my opinion. But I think that you're right that Vance has really well positioned himself to take over in 2028 for President Trump. And I think he made an extremely strong case for what a Vance administration would look like on Tuesday night, talking about how there should be no religious persecution in America, about how courage to all these things should be kind of the governing principles. And so I think you're totally right there.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think President Trump is one of those people who he knows whatever your button is. Like within 30 seconds, he knows what your button is. And he knows their button is that he's the president and they wanted him in jail. So what better to talk about than a third term? You're right. It's highly improbable because I actually, looked it up because I'm thinking civics, I know you can only serve 2 terms. What does it take to change that? Well, it would be a constitutional amendment. You need 2/3 of the states to get that done, but the left never looks anything up. Have you noticed how they never stops to say he's saying he would get a third term? It seems kind of impossible since they don't have a super majority in the Senate. So I wonder how he thinks he's going to get that done. 2/3 of the states would have to ratify that. Republicans control half the states. And so instead of just dismissing it, they continue to they're like foaming at the mouth about it on television, which is so funny to me.
Of course, I completely agree. They're acting so afraid. This is such a huge threat to democracy. This is clearly very unrealistic. It would take just something very dramatic for something like this to be possible to take place. I think we all can agree this is not going to happen. And spending time freaking out about it when we have so many other things to worry about is pretty funny.
It is. It's funny. I have to tell you, I was super excited to get updates from you today directly from the White House. Thank you so much for joining us, Elizabeth, and we look forward to seeing you in the room at the next press briefing.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
All right, have a great week. And turning now to another kind of news soundbite that comes to us from CNN. They have proudly admitted that they prefer Soros, George Soros. He's a multi-billionaire who's often very involved in politics and has passed the baton on to his son, Alex Soros. They prefer him over Musk because apparently Musk is too transparent. Now, one of my favorite things about Elon Musk, because I never really paid much attention to him before all of the kind of rise of the lawfare against President Trump and Elon Musk purchased Twitter. And that's when I first kind of started paying close attention to him and kind of looking up his bio and figuring out who is this guy? I mean, I know he's an immigrant from South Africa, but what else? Well, it turns out he's a far more interesting person than he's given credit for. And as we've played clips on this program, leftists used to call him the second coming of Jesus, which is blasphemous and also inaccurate, but it just is an indicator of how much they loved him. And now they think Soros is better than Musk. It's a definite shift, kind of crazy. Coming up, more left wing media lies about Doge and the Trump administration wanting to eliminate Social Security, while Musk has said exactly the opposite when we return.